let's dive into the open world of Dying Light 2.
Hey all, Charlie from Purposeless Rabbit Holes here, back from my pretty short hiatus. So I am going to be taking a break from the channel for a while after this video, but I thought before I go, might as well drop a little nugget of Dying Light content for all you hungry hippo-acting motherfuckers out there. Today's topic of discussion is what I'm calling the faction of Sentient Volatiles theory, which I know it doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it gets the point across. TLDW if you don't want to stick around for the long version of this, but what I'm predicting here is that there is a hidden faction in the world of Dying Light 2 that will likely come into play in the second half of the game. The faction in question? Why, a faction of Sentient Volatiles, of course. I'm guessing that a big twist deep into DL2's narrative will have to do with this unannounced faction made up of volatiles and likely other monsters that have developed sentience and a society of their own, or at the very least a societal hierarchy of some sort. As you can imagine, a reveal like this would turn everything about this world on its head. Now you wouldn't just be dealing with normal humans that have split off into various factions, you'd also be dealing with an entirely new set of beings that can be communicated with. Creatures with their own thoughts and feelings and motivations and relationships, like the mother from the original game's DLC. With the reveal in mind that some of these creatures have begun to evolve past their mindless urges, the game's narrative implications would expand massively, prompting the player to start considering large and terrifying questions like, do humans even belong in this world anymore? Are these monsters not just monsters, but instead the next step in human evolution? And if so, as humans, do we fight against this evolution to stay human, or do we work with these beings to form a new vision of society? Yeah. Shit would be fucking crazy! So, where did this theory even come from? Is there any actual evidence to support it, or am I just talking out of my ass? Well, most of the time I am talking out of my ass, so that is a factor, but I also have a couple different sources that have pushed me to really believe in this theory, and the first thing is pretty recent, which is the way that the devs talked about DL2's creatures in the second episode of their show Dying to Know. This second episode aired on July 1st, 2021, and was entirely focused on the game's infected enemies, and the devs continually mentioned that they wanted the player to feel empathy for these creatures, because they're not just beasts to be slaughtered, no, they're sick people who deserve nothing but sympathy for the tragic transformation this virus has put them through.
So first of all, I think it's important to say that our monsters used to be sick and suffering people who just didn't manage to find UV light or any other cure in time. The virus causes them a lot of pain and it makes them suffer, and they are not driven by hatred, but by instinct, their new nature.
So he sometimes rises on his tiptoes to see better, to see his surroundings, but that also makes him look like this very scared, panic child.
Why is he so scared?
Well, it's because there are some traces of his humanity in him.
But they all just lose this fight with their instincts then at some point.
Totally. Actually, they rather evoke pity.
That all feels a bit suspicious to me. They really went out of their way to emphasize that they don't want to call these enemies zombies anymore. That's my first point in favor of this theory, the way the devs have talked about their own monsters. Moving on to point number 2, we have a character I mentioned a minute ago, the mother from the following DLC. This one's pretty straightforward. I mean, we know there are sentient volatiles in the world of Dying Light. This is a fact. In my personal opinion, the reveal of the mother being a sentient volatile was the single coolest and most creative thing the original did with its world and story, so I really hope they do even more with that idea the second time around. Moving on to point number 3, which is a real big one, we have the I Am Legend influence. From the moment Dying Light 2 was revealed, the devs have openly stated that I Am Legend served as a huge influence on the game, and, I mean, even if they didn't say it, it's plain as fucking day. Like, look at this shit. What you're seeing on screen right now is that exact scene from the Will Smith adaptation of I Am Legend. The way the zombies huddle together in the darkness of interiors during the day as well, very similar to the 2007 movie. Now, if you've only seen the theatrical cut of that 2007 movie, you might be a little confused right now, so let me break it down. In short, the alternate ending of that movie and the actual ending of the novella it's based on both explore the concept of a society of monsters becoming the new status quo after an apocalyptic event. In the alternate ending of the film, Robert Neville basically ends up wordlessly reasoning with the zombies and gets away alive after they show him mercy, and in the book, the main character is straight up imprisoned and sentenced to death by more evolved versions of the vampires. Oh yeah, the book's actually about vampires and not zombies. It's weird, don't worry about it. Well, actually, maybe worry about it, because the book's awesome. You should go read it. Richard Matheson is a master. With all that in mind, I ask you this. If I Am Legend is such a prevalent influence on this game's development, why would the writers ignore the most interesting concept that the source material has on offer, the crux of the original story's ending? Well, I don't think they would ignore it, which is why I'm making the video. The last point I have to back up this theory is a pretty simple one, and a pretty flimsy one if I'm being honest. It's just the talent they brought in to write this game. Techland hired people who worked on New Vegas and The Witcher, and both of those games deconstruct the idea of quote-unquote monsters, The Witcher in particular. A lot of people in the world of The Witcher view Geralt as a monster, even though he's actually a sexy badass, and Geralt himself constantly engages with mythical monsters that at first glance might seem like mindless threats, but quickly become more than that when you get up close and personal, and try to understand them. So yeah, we're probably gonna have a conversation with one of these things, and that conversation is gonna change everything. Bonus points if the leader of the Volatile faction is Kyle Crane, who evolves into a Volatile after the most depressing ending of the following, where he succumbs to the virus and eats a bunch of kids for breakfast. Second complementary theory, I'm pretty sure the new protagonist Aiden is part Volatile, and will serve as the bridge between humanity and the Volatiles because he's got a little bit of both in him. We know he was experimented on as a kid using some form of the Haran virus, and we know he can jump higher and strike harder than a normal human, in which case, yeah, probably part volatile. Feel free to bookmark this video so you can come back in 5 months when I'm proven right and tell me how awesome I am. Or to come back and laugh at me after I enlist this thing because I was horribly wrong. Alright, that's all I got. I'm gonna go back to chillin' and playing Yakuza like a dragon. Ichiban Kasuga is the best character ever.